Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to try and do this. This is like take 3 or take 4 and shorten it. I had said to you I was going to discuss laying out table legs. So I looked all over in the shop. I shouldn't say I looked all over because you ever notice when somebody says, I looked all over? Well, apparently, if you didn't find what you wanted, you didn't look all over. I looked through the shop for some examples. And I came across this piece of pine, which would give me an example of what I would not choose for fine furniture. It's perfectly good, solid material, not a problem. However, for visual grain, you would have straight grain on one face, flat face, straight grain, flat face. So if the leg stock is going to be square or tapered, but still straight and square, it's going to show flat grain and edge grain. And you can see it, I hope you can see it, here, and I'll turn it the right way. The center of the tree was here, the outside of the tree was here, and the growth rings are laying virtually flat. Okay? So this came from a flat sawn piece of wood. These were some legs that I laid out once from a mixed set of pieces of wood. And you have the same situation. These are ash. You have flat sawn, you have quarter grain, you got flat sawn, you got quarter grain. There was only one piece that gave me hope, and it was this one, to somewhat have vertical grain to some degree on 4 faces. And if you remember, we talked about grain direction in the sycamore piece I was planing. We had flat sawn here. We had somewhat rift sawn here. This was pretty good. But here we had flat sawn again. And on this side, we had the quarter sawn grain, that beautiful ray fleck. Now, if you want to do a piece of furniture with quarter sawn face on the front only, that's fine. However, and I don't know if you've ever looked at a true quality piece of original Stickley furniture that had quarter sawn face on all the sides. You can't buy lumber like that. You have to make it. So what they would do is they would get quarter sawn oak and they would build it over a core so that when the leg is finished, it was quarter sawn all the way around. But that was laminated up, okay? And from some of the examples I've seen, there was some little keys and tongue and grooves that they used to kind of pull it all together. So yes, if you want quarter sawn figure on the face of your table legs, you can do it. But you're going to sacrifice visual character on the opposite sides. And then it's going to dump rift or quarter sawn on the inside of the table leg where you're not going to see it as well. So that's why when I lay out table legs on a plank, I will go down the center of the plank and open it up and see what I have. Then I'll rip a leg, and then there'll be a second piece cut from another part of the board so that the 4 legs will come from the same board. So the color will all be the same and the texture will all be the same. Now, if you're buying lumber at the lumber yard, lumber mill, whatever, you can also watch for your flat sawn boards, okay? And then on the outside edges, you'll be able to get your rift sawn, and then it'll start to be a little bit less. But over here, you'll have your rift sawn. So you take your legs from the outer portions. Does that make sense? I hope this makes sense. But that's how I do it. And depending on if you're staining and glazing and painting and antiquing and stuff like that, you can just make any square you want. It can come from 4 different pieces of wood, 4 different trees. It doesn't matter. As long as it's all stable and dry, plain square and true, you're good to go. But then there's one other thing. Let's see, what kind of example do I have here? When you're making table legs with round turnings, when you're dealing with rounds, you will have flat sawn grain on 2 faces, and you will have quarter sawn grain on 2 faces all the time. You don't have to worry about leg orientation. However, if you're going to have a square section at the top to do your joinery, you have to orientate that properly so that you get your patterns where you want. That's why I say rift sawn. Always rift sawn. By the way, that's a baseball bat blank. Hard rock maple. I don't know, it's been here since I sold the business in 2012. 13 years. That's at least 13 to 14 years old. Like, subscribe, and share. Head out to your shop. Walter out.